Let's grill these panelists. No, I'm just kidding.
I start?
Yep.
Well, hi, everyone. It's time to get started today. I want to thank everybody for attending the journalism, PR, corporate communications panel session during AAF Toledo's first ever virtual CareerCon event. We're really excited about it. My name is Kathy Jex. I'll be the moderator for this session. I'm a freelance business owner and a past president of AAF Toledo. Please note that we are recording this session and we'll be posting it on our website, aaftoledo.org. So you can go back and look at it as much as you'd like and refer to all the information that you learned today. To start, I want to introduce each one of our professional panelists today. I'm going to start with Rhonda Sewell. She's currently the manager of external and government affairs at Toledo Lucas County Public Library and a tireless community activist. You see her name everywhere. She's best known locally for her 18-year career as a journalist at The Blade, where she interviewed numerous fascinating people, including the late author Maya Angelou, one of my personal favorites. She has worked for the library for the past 15 years, first as a media relations specialist, before being promoted as the library's first ever government advocate. Welcome, Rhonda. Lori King is a photojournalist and an educator who has dedicated her life to telling written and visual stories. Her journalism career began when she joined the U.S. Army as a print journalist, serving 8 years in the active Army, 10 years in the Ohio Army National Guard, and 3 years in the Air National Guard. Lori retired from the 180th Fighter Wing right here in our region in 2000. She's been a photojournalist with the Toledo Blade since 1995 and is a photojournalism multimedia adjunct instructor at the University of Toledo, Kent State University, and Wayne State University in Detroit. Kelly Kessler started her marketing career on the client side at St. V's and was an account exec at 2 agencies, William Silverman and RP, working on brands such as Blue Cross Blue Shield, National City Bank, which is now PNC, Borders, Ballpark Franks, and then HCR Manor Care, where the team won a Silver Anvil for work on Heart's Desire program. She then jumped back to the client side, literally joining her client HCR Manor Care's internal team, where she has helped transition HCR through 2 mergers and countless brand campaigns, working with both local and national agencies. HCR Manor Care is now part of ProMedica, and Kelly recently moved into the role of Director, Content Strategy for ProMedica Brands. And Shaun Hegarty serves as the investigative reporter for 13 ABC Action News. Each day he digs into stories to uncover government waste, shady practices, and changes that will benefit Northwest Ohio as a whole. Shaun came to 13 ABC after his time at Fox Toledo, WUPW, where he served as news anchor, executive producer, before the newsroom was closed in 2012. South Texas was home for Shaun and his wife before he moved back to Toledo. He was a weekday reporter, weekend producer for KRIS, the NBC affiliate in Corpus Christi. He's a graduate of Syracuse University with a dual major of broadcast journalism from the SI Newhouse School of Public Communication and political science from the College of Arts and Sciences. Thank you all so much for being here to participate. It's going to be a great discussion. But before we begin, we have to take care of some business. We'd like to share a few words from our gold event sponsors, Therma-Tru Doors and MADAV Collective, and our silver sponsor, the University of Toledo.
At Therma-Tru, we're not just building entryways that perform for a lifetime. We're making people feel at home. From the production floor to the front door and every step in between. Because we're all working together to make home better through security, performance, and style. Bringing innovation to life that makes an impact beyond our walls. Meeting the needs of families and welcoming new members to ours. Standing behind every component of our complete door system, engineered to perform for a lifetime. Helping our partners build trust so they can build stronger businesses, providing security people can count on in timeless designs that fit their personality, being a part of houses that families are proud to call home, confident that they made the right choice for the long run. The moments behind every door are always at the front of our mind. We strive to make the places where we live, where we play, and where we work always feel like home.
MADAP Collective provides professional branding, advertising, and design services for small nonprofit organizations. Our residency program pairs aspiring creatives with expert mentors from the MADAP Group family of agencies. Creatives get paid for their work and build a foundation for a successful career in Toledo. Mentors donate their time to develop the next generation of talent. And our nonprofit clients get agency-level marketing services that don't break the budget.
Let's say you're someone like Anthony. Smart, hardworking, up for a challenge. You check out big old anonymous state university. And you feel, well, like a number. Then you do a 180. You visit the tiny technical school in your neighborhood. But now you start thinking they may not have the majors, research, technology, and experiences that you're sort of expecting. And then you check out Toledo. You meet a professor, and she tells you about the clinical experience you'll get right here at the University of Toledo.
Let's say you're someone like Hannah, bright, resourceful, ready to go. You check out fill-in-the-blank state university, and you feel, well, a little lost. Then you reverse course. You visit that small college your uncle went to, but now you're stuck in neutral wondering if maybe they don't have the majors, internships, research, facilities, and activities that you're sort of expecting. And then you check out Toledo. You meet an advisor, and he tells you about the experience and mentorship you'll find right here at the University of Toledo.
You do have the opportunity to sign up for interviews with both MADAV and Thermatru doors on either Saturday during day 3 of our event or on Monday or Tuesday of next week. Look at your email pass for instructions on how to sign up for the interviews, and we'll also post the links in the chat box. And lastly, we want to thank our other silver sponsor, LaPlante Real Estate, and our bronze sponsor, Owens Community College. LPRE is a full-service real estate brokerage and property management company, providing a full spectrum of housing services to our clients, whether they are looking for residential brokerage services like buying or selling a home, investing in Northwest Ohio's rental properties, or seeking to rent a home in Toledo. Find them on Facebook at LaPlante Real Estate or at www.laplanterealestate.com. Thank you, sponsors, once again for your gracious support of our event. Now that we've taken care of business, let's begin our guided discussion. I'd like to encourage everybody attending to please mute your microphones to ensure that the panelists can be heard by everybody, and put any questions you might have in our chat box on the Zoom, and the last 15 minutes of the discussion will be for your questions. So we'll start. Who wants to start? How about Kelly? Corporate communications, along with corporate affairs, are growing fields given the emergence of leadership communications, sustainability, DE&I, and employee engagement, and so on. Where should students focus?
It's a good question. All of those have the one thing in common, though. It's about the writing skills that comes with all of them. So that would be where I'd focus first. However, let me touch base on each one of those that you mentioned. Corporate communications, that's really evolved over the last 10 years. It's not just talking through, annual reports at financial discussions. It's really talking through the corporate affairs. You mentioned DEI, employee engagement, and leadership communications. I can tell you right now that here at ProMedica, we're working on a lot of programs to help feature our leadership in thought leadership programs on social media. So often companies were very hesitant to have that out there, but as communications and social media and all digital communications grow, that's becoming a much more key element for us as well. DEI has moved from something 10 years ago that really was part of HR and is really part of our communications plans across the board now. It is a key element in all that we do. Employee engagement, we're a company that's in 28 states. So the more I can talk to my employees, I've got 50,000 people across the country working to tell our story every day. So that is another piece that is growing exponentially. I currently have a content team here in Toledo that is composed of one full-time writer, many contributors to that as well from the different subject matters. I'm actually looking to hire a second writer. I have 2 social media specialists and then PR people that I work with in tandem every day. And then the digital and web team that we provide all the content for as well. So that's the bread and butter of our work that we do every day here. So if you're asking me on which you could focus, there are so many opportunities. If you have a strong writing and project management skills, you can go into any of those fields.
Rhonda, can you add to that?
Definitely. Thank you, Kathy. Kelly, I totally agree. The strong writing background is just a must, no matter what aspect that you are attracted to, whether it be journalism, PR, corporate communications. But Kathy, I would like to abstract just one aspect of that long list that Kelly so eloquently stated there. It is really DEI. Here at the library, we call it IDEA because we like to include access. So we actually have a platform called the Big Idea. So IDEA being the acronym for inclusion, diversity, equity, and access, because that is often left out of the discussion. I think oftentimes students have to, like industry, has to acknowledge that there has been systemic injustices, and our mode of advertising and public relations and communications and journalism and that whole media industry has been no exception. And so there's a reckoning that's happening with industry and also as leaders in this arena. And people are kind of scratching their head as to what to do. No one knows where to start. So if you can obtain any type of certifications, even continuing education units, attending webinars, conferences, even classes. There's a lot of undergraduate coursework and graduate coursework in systemic racism and equity that are now being offered as there's an enlightenment going on right now. I think you will be head and shoulders above the rest when it comes to you looking for a profession. Everyone thinks of, and I'm getting on my soapbox just a little, Kathy, but everyone thinks that this whole DEI or IDEA journey is that there's a sort of a destination, and there's really not a destination. We're just going on the path together, learning as much as we can, educating ourselves, and making the work that we do in advertising, PR, marketing, journalism, more equitable for all, for us now and for future generations. And people talk a lot about diversity, but I like to steer, especially students, to talk more about inclusion. I think that's really the focus right now. So that would be my biggest recommendation for young people, is to really engage in this whole area of emphasis. It is not going anywhere. It may change names. It may change acronyms, but it will be around for a very, very long time. And the more that you steep yourself in learning about this, and even having some skill set around it, I think that will open the door to employers being very, very interested in your resume or CV.
Great points, Rhonda, definitely. Shaun, you're not really in corporate communications, but as part of the station, there's definitely that type, you're part of a corporation, and that in itself has a face. And you guys, I mean, you have your own Facebook page. Part of your corporate communications is actually individually oriented, I would assume. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, certainly. You know, from a larger corporate perspective, nobody knows our corporate headquarters. Nobody knows our corporate structure, but you know, if you see Lee and Diane at Kroger, who they are. So that in some ways is our brand. So yeah, I think that I think all of that's important. The DEI, I think, is very important. I think it's important for us to make sure that we're actively looking for those voices, that we're looking to include more people in our discussions, not just focusing on you know, certain geographic areas, but getting into areas where we don't hear from people. We've done, you know, as we've done a lot of stories with COVID, especially, you know, when you talk about the vaccine, you talk about areas where the vaccine isn't getting to, and the folks it is not readily available to. Are we going out to tell those stories? Or are we going out to tell the stories of just the people that are getting them? Who are the folks that we're missing? Who are the people that are not part of that? So yeah, I think that's important for us, you know, to make sure we're doing that and to make sure we're putting our faces on it. And yeah, well, it's a different branding, I think, than what Kelly and Rhonda are kind of getting at, but it's the same idea of getting everybody included, making it known, and to make sure we're continuing on it, make sure we're putting our faces on it and getting in there every single day.
Laura, you have anything to add to that? You're in a newspaper, which again has morphed into a huge corporation. I mean, there's, you know, Block Communications, and, you know, it's the Blade, it's Buckeye Cable, it's Buckeye Tel. There's a large corporation there. You're muted, Laurie.
The corporation aspect is really so far above my pay grade. I'm a niche. I'm down at the bottom.
Well, how do you see it in the newsroom?
Right now, the newsroom is empty. We're all working from home, but we all have our individual jobs. So I'm out and about doing visual stories for the reporters and for myself. So I don't see what's happening on the corporate level. We have staffs who handle our social media, the newspaper, the advertising. So I'm like separate from all of that.
Well, let's morph then into talking about journalism as a profession, which is a question that everyone has on their minds right now. It's really been taking a beating in the past few years. People saying all kinds of things about journalists. And what is the career of a journalist today really like? And what are the skills you need to survive and be a good reporter or news person in this business?
Well, I think right now the environment's pretty rocky and uncertain, but I think it's never we can never let it go away, because without journalists, and we would be in an uninformed society, and that would be very dangerous for our democracy. So I'm a big proponent of journalism. I don't know if you guys know that the Blade is now going down to 2 printed papers a week in March. Out of sight, out of mind, I'm afraid. That's my biggest fear, is people forgetting that the Toledo Blade exists, because we're only a hard printed copy, soon to be 2 days a week.
Yeah.
But our message is so important, and Shaun and Rhonda understand what I'm saying. But I think to sustain what we have to do to keep our jobs is to be diversified. So we should be able to, students who are listening, you should be able to know how to write, take pictures, do video, podcasts, social media. There is so much more you have to do. Back in the old days, you were a photographer and that's all you were. Those days are gone. And now our reporters at the Blade are shooting their stories with visual stories with their smartphones. So now I'm teaching 2 photojournalism classes this semester, and we're using our smartphones and not even a real camera, DSLR camera. So you have to be able to change with the times, but we have to keep doing it. Like I think Rhonda said, education, is really important.
Shaun, you want to elaborate on that, since you're the next most important journalist here?
Well, it goes Lori, Rhonda, then me, right?
Yeah.
No, I feel for Lori, and it's sad to hear the 2-day-a-week thing. Although I feel as though that the Blade will always have a role of prominence and a role of being on the record, because I think what's very difficult these days is that you see a lot of junk on the internet, a lot of things on Facebook, a lot of things on Twitter. But I think what people really are looking for is that verified source to know where to get the information from. So I think to that degree, Lori, I'm very hopeful that while your medium may change, your delivery may change, I don't think that your professionalism and your oomph, right, your verification will ever go away. I think what's so difficult anymore is that our businesses are changing, and you hear this all the time, right? They're changing every day. Everything's changing every day. We just have to make sure that we're getting to where the audiences are, right? If the audiences are going all digital, or if they're on demand, we've got to make sure that we're getting there, because while we're storytellers, we're journalists, we're also running businesses, not us personally, but we're all part of businesses, right? It's the news business, and some days it's the other way around. But I think our organizations will continue to stay relevant. I think that the trick for us is going to be to adapt to get where the audiences are. Just as I'm looking at how people are watching TV, and I don't know if anybody's noticing these groupings, this Disney Plus, this Paramount Plus, Peacock. You're going to see all of these organizations that own television groups kind of working together, and then dogs will attack them back there. But how are news organizations getting in on those bundles? I'm sure those discussions are being had, but how are we making sure to put our content where people are gathering it and are looking for it, instead of just doing our own thing, right? I mean, I'm naive if I believe that everyone in this panel is going to tune in at 6:01 to watch the news tonight, right? It's not the way we consume it anymore. I'd love it if you all showed up at 6 o'clock for the news, but it's probably very unlikely. Okay, well, it's just glorious, but it's probably unlikely. So where am I putting the content that people can consume it, that they can get the information, and that, you know, we continue to stay relevant. I think that's probably a challenge every day, right? What's new? Where are people? Because there's this discussion of, you know, should we be on Facebook more? Should we be on Twitter more? How can we put it on Instagram? You know, does it work on some of the other, like the Snapchat and the I don't know that news is quite on TikTok yet, but like those are the kind of places where we get, yeah. So those are the kind of things that we need to make sure that we're thinking about, and not be naive some days to believe that everyone's picking up Lori's hard copy or is coming to us at 6:01 p.m.
Good points. And news is really a 24-hour cycle now. It used to be at finite times, and now there's no end to the news cycle. It's 24/7 with all the outlets.
Well, that's a good point, right? So we're kind of, and Lori can experiences this too, right? Let's say we got a great scoop. Okay, Lori's got great pictures of it. She's got a good write-up. Is she going to save it for tomorrow morning's paper? Is she going to save it for to show up on your doorstep? Doesn't work that way anymore, right? Because Lori's going to want to blast that as soon as possible, because the news cycle just works like that. And the Blade is good with that, on getting those things out there, but those are always tricky situations, right? If I believe that I have it as an exclusive and nobody else has it, you know, do I roll the dice and hold it to 6:01 to see if anybody else has it? And if Lori's got something really good, does she, you know, dare hold it until the paper? You know, you have that pride, and when it hits the front, you know, the front page the next morning it's just a splash, but it's just it's developing and evolving, and I think that's all on all of us. And then, you know, the new folks, the younger generation here, to be in that mentality all the time, always putting it out there, always cranking it out there, and not necessarily waiting.
Yeah. Rhonda, can you elaborate on that a little?
Yeah, I love what both Lori and Shaun is, what they've expressed so far. Shaun, it kind of reminds me of the challenges of the profession that I'm in with public libraries across the country. We've been able to remain relevant and adapt to a lot of those changes. You know, we were once just a place for books, right? And in our minds, the publishing industry is not going anywhere. In fact, it's really getting stronger in areas and genres like young adult fiction and things of that nature. But we would be crazy not to think that our customers who are walking through our doors, and there's an assumption too that they're even walking through our doors. A lot of them are accessing what we have online digitally. And so we have, instead of fighting the digital explosion, we've welcomed it, we've embraced it. And as a result, our numbers of visitation across the country, and even pre-COVID, our buildings, not since the age of Carnegie have we seen so many establishments of new public libraries, because we're servicing a need. And this isn't just a shameless plug about public libraries, but it reminds me so much, Shaun, of what you just said about, you know, keeping up with the changing landscape. If we are not doing that, and if we are fighting it at every step of the way, not only will we get scooped by our competitors, but we do a disservice to possibly younger readers or viewers, and those who ingest their news in a different format. So I think it's incumbent upon us to do just as you said, Shaun, is to diversify. Lori, you said that, to diversify all of the ways in which we ingest. I don't think, however, that industry needs to jump on the latest fads. I think metrics and measurement has to, you know, get in there somewhere. That does this make sense for our organization? Does creating a TikTok account make sense for our organization? Is that the way that our followers and our readers are ingesting what we're putting out there. So I just really agree with what Kathy, what both Lori and Shaun are saying here. It's just important. I look at my own evolvement from a journalist to getting into, you know, the marketing world, to getting into another extension of all of this, which is advocacy. I just think that even the way I ingest news, I ingest all of that information has changed dramatically over the course of 20 years.
Can I jump in there, Rhonda? I think one thing that is tricky for, you know, for those of us that have been in it so long, and maybe it would be good for the next generation, is to maybe not necessarily dig our heels in on what we did in the past, right? Because as fast as our platforms are changing, I wonder for the next generation if it's going to change even faster. So the next generation almost has to be more flexible, that, you know, like you said, let's see that Channel 13 and the library system start TikTok, right? And we spend a year or two really kind of drilling in on making a TikTok work and make it work for libraries and the news. 2 years, TikTok might be gone, right? And then it's all gone for naught. So I think it's especially incumbent on us, but maybe even so the next generation, to be ready on the fly with being flexible. Be prepared for what you're doing today to be gone in 5 years, in some way, shape, or form. Not your profession. Library is the blade. 13 not going anywhere. I don't think ProMedica is going anywhere, right? Kelly, we're good with that. But that you got to be prepared for the change, and what you're learning and what you're doing today is probably not the same format as what you're going to be doing 5 to 10 years from now. But come to that realization now. This is how it's going to happen.
Yeah, and jobs are different. My niece is just a year or two out of journalism school, and her world is very different. She has 2 jobs, loves it. She lives in Berlin, Germany, writes for a women's sports magazine out of Toronto, and she can edit overnight so that when they wake up, everything's fresh for them. And then she also does all the marketing for a sports firm in Berlin. And I grew up with, I have one job, one role. She loves this. This works out so well for her. And I think that is probably the way that a lot of journalism and storytelling is going to be in the future. It's going to be, and you're going to have multiple opportunities, not just one role that you're going forward with. So, and even within this last COVID, this last year, Lori, you mentioned nobody's in the newsroom. People are all working from home. We're all working in different ways, in a very different, it's been a really good way to show that, we can work from home. I miss some of the collaboration, but I don't think that our team needs to be here every single day. They can work from home and successfully. So just totally changed the way we all look at work-life balance. So.
Unless you're a photojournalist, then you have to go out and about.
Then you have to go out, yeah.
Do you think some of the changes that we've seen throughout COVID, with no one being in the newsroom and people working from home and being more independent, you think that's going to affect things in the future? I mean, I know, and I think what someone said earlier about learn how to do everything, and that's the best way to prepare. I mean, I think Shaun was that you learn how to shoot, learn how to edit, learn how to do your podcast, learn every aspect, and that's the way that you survive in a situation like this. Do you agree? You think that these changes are going to be permanent in our industry?
No. I don't know. I just think the one thing, Lori, I'm sorry to jump on there, Lori.
Okay.
One thing I think we miss is the team effort, right? I mean, we all do our own stories and we kind of do our own thing. I mean, I have coworkers I haven't met yet. There's like 4 or 5 people that I haven't even met, and they're tossing to me and I'm tossing back to them, and we email each other. Never met them before. And I think that's unfortunate. And I think that aspect of a team aspect has to come back around, because we can all do our own thing and be independent and that's fine. But I think there's something to be said for being the news team, the public relations team, the ProMedica team, the library team, then I think we'll get back. Now, will we all be, will our companies want to have big giant buildings? And maybe not. Maybe they want to, scale things back. But I think some of the stuff will stick. I think some of it will be they want to get the teams and the organizations back together.
Laura, you want to add to that?
Yeah, I teach at this semester, Wayne State in Detroit and UT, and both classes are the same, photojournalism. Wayne State's completely 100% online and UT is in person. So I gave UT the beginning of the semester the option to be online, and none of them wanted it. Maybe one wanted it, but right now I keep having students who are quarantined. So they're like missing 2 weeks class. So I have to record the sessions. But the biggest issue is that because of COVID, and I teach photojournalism, meaning they have to go out and shoot real things, is that they're afraid to leave their house to go shoot stuff. So they're gonna be behind the 8 ball when it comes to dealing with strangers, how to interview people, how to go out and take pictures at an event. I had to cancel my sports assignment for the past year and a half. So it's affecting the students right now who are in the journalism and photojournalism industry, particularly if they're too afraid to leave the house. So that's how, as a working photojournalist, that doesn't affect me at all. I've been in the morgue when they were testing a guy who recently died of suspected COVID, and they were doing the COVID test inside the morgue. In people's homes and businesses, I'm still out and about as if nothing ever happened, but I wear 2 masks. But it's scary.
Yeah, but we have to still cover the news.
Well,
Yeah.
to that degree, Lori, right? Our jobs are not passive; they are
Right.
very active. And when there is a riot or there is a hurricane, we run into it. Now, we're not first responders, so don't that's not what I'm getting at. But those are the things that we can't sit home. We can do a little bit of our work from home and do some of the technical stuff, but day in and day out for the next generation of it, this is going to be a very active profession, global pandemic or not. That's just the way it is.
Exactly.
Rhonda, anything to add to this?
I think during especially the height of the pandemic and during the shutdown, I think it lent itself to what can we learn during this time. And I saw a lot of organizations really afraid, number one, of how to manage everything, but also some of them became very innovative during this process. And I think some of the innovation that we saw in organizations will stick even post-COVID, or when we reach this alleged herd immunity. I'm just kidding. I want to reach herd immunity. I want to get back to summer concerts and seeing friends and hugging the elders in my family and all of that. But that's a refreshing kind of aspect of when we go through collective trauma, such as the coronavirus, together. I mean, we've suffered a lot of loss during this time. And not to mention all of the social unrest and the divisiveness that we saw over the last couple of years. It forced, I think, organizations in our profession of, whether it be advertising, marketing, journalism, photojournalism, all of that, to innovate. And that is, to me, encouraging to see how we will navigate even when we are back to some sense of normalcy, because I don't think what we experienced pre-COVID that we're going back there ever, unfortunately, but there will be a new normal that I think organizations will have to contend with. We're survivors, naturally, we're survivors. And so I've been encouraged, even in my own profession of advocacy, I've been very, very encouraged to see how people have innovated.
And Kelly, obviously healthcare has been hugely impacted by this pandemic, and your brand messaging and everything has changed for you.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, being part of the senior care group originally, and then joining ProMedica and seeing it from both the hospital, physician, and also our field, it was amazing to see the way that our employees handled it and how they, you know, basically came forward and were willing to go out. And, you know, I was just talking to one of our medical directors. He was on 124 flights last year, making sure that he was in the front line with our field as an outbreak occurred to help train and help be there. And so those are the things that we just had to change. I mean, where we had to go to webinars and Zoom. I mean, who knew that Zoom would be the only word we use when we talk about, I'm going to Zoom, you know, call a year ago.
Yeah.
You know, we had webinars occasionally, but we really preferred to meet in person. And now that's just been a standard. And then just even talking to all of my colleagues across the country, you know, it's interesting to see how we've changed. You know, we don't do brochures anymore. It's all about a digital message to them, or how do we do a national webinar versus have a speaker come into town. So we've pivoted in all our marketing and public relations across the board. So it's been an interesting thing, and COVID will change our industry forever. Certainly the senior care, you know, hospitals and physicians will adjust as well, but I think you'll see that senior care will change the most. Yeah. So,
Well, I think it's time for questions. If anyone has any questions, I don't know that I haven't seen any in particular. Anything else that you guys have thought of that you wanted to communicate to the students about this particular field, courses they should pursue? And I like that you're encouraging that they need to, I think, work with your people skills, you know, learn how to communicate. And it's been tough because we have had a setback this year, and nobody's allowed to go anywhere. And when you do, you're behind a mask. So it's really hard to read people and figure out what's communicating. Any last thoughts for the students on whether they should choose this kind of a career, you know, where to go?
Kathy, can I jump in just
Sure.
really quickly and offer an alternative that many don't think has to do with this area of study, but it's one that I'm in now that I had no idea related, and that's advocacy. Funding is a huge issue for systems and organizations, especially nonprofits. And we are seeing so many governmental affairs positions popping up across industries. And these are new positions where there is a need for advocacy within the organization to attract funding for the organization for sustainability. And oftentimes, I'll take the Urban Libraries Council, their MARCOM committee is full of government affairs advocates because there's so many parallels to really promoting and marketing your organization, but the stakeholders are different. They're legislators and elected officials who hold the key to funding for your organization. So don't be afraid to explore these fringe positions like mine, where I'm an external and governmental affairs advocate for my library system. This was a created role. This is a new role that I've been on this job for 15 years, but for the last 5 years or 6 now, I've been an advocate for my library system because half of our funding comes from state dollars. And so don't be afraid to look at, and it's an extension of marketing. It definitely has a connection and a tie. Don't be afraid to look at those types of positions. And even if you're not interested in going into that, again, it's what the employer looks for on the resume or your CV. And if you take an advocacy class or a governmental affairs class, your knowledge in civics is a plus. So I just wanted to add that as well, Kathy, for consideration.
That's a great comment. And it's interesting how the fields have kind of morphed and overlapped and changed over the years. There used to be some very strict differences between like corporate communications and marketing and public relations. They were separate departments, and now you really have to work together in lockstep for your brand image, your campaign, the message, and everything that's going on within and outside of the company. We do have a question about essential skills for someone looking to pursue an internship or a career in the field. Anybody any?
All right, I'll give you one thing. Here's a little bit of homework. If you've got some journalism majors and people on the webinar here, you first got to figure out who you're dealing with, right? Who owns who owns the different television stations in this town? That's a little homework assignment for you. Go ahead, students, see if you can look it up. And those are the kind of things you got to do a little homework. You got to figure out who owns these stations. How do you communicate with them? Most of it's all online. Nobody's taking phone calls anymore. How can you reach out to those organizations? Maybe start at the parent companies and look in Toledo, see what's available, and send your things those ways. I think you just got to get savvy with doing some research and trying to figure out who's who, figure out who you're talking to, and go down those steps, because this generation is going to know their computers and those kind of things inside and out. You just got to realize who you're talking to and take a couple minutes to do a little research before you get into that. That'll be your first major and much easier step.
Absolutely. And flattery goes a long way. I loved your campaign, or I loved that story you did, or, you know, I saw something that you wrote. That will get your foot in the door. Definitely.
Well, yeah, and just don't say that one you did last night. Try to at least act like you watched most of it, even if you didn't read the whole, watch the whole thing. Just act like you read most of it or watched most of it.
You actually know the details. Anybody else?
I did want to talk about journalists. A lot of people start out as journalists, end up going over to what we jokingly used to call the dark side. Rhonda knows what I'm talking about. A lot of the Blade photographers and reporters have went over to marketing and PR over the past 10 years. It is a great cross field, cross fields, because both corporate marketing and PR require communication skills. Journalists require communication skills. Writing is the key thing, and knowing how to interview people. But there are so many people who have started in journalism and went over to marketing, and the hours are better, the pays can be better. It's just different. But now maybe it's the bright side instead of the dark side these days. But the main difference would be, though, there's a more ethical boundary to marketing, I think, particularly with working with pictures, because as a photojournalist, we have to be more the real, keep it real. Where in marketing, you're about making your company look good. Mm-hmm. So I think I don't think it's as easy for marketing to go into journalism as journalists to go into marketing. Would you agree, Rhonda?
100%. You are so spot on, Lori, in your assessment. I, shamelessly, carried the torch and went in over to the dark side
You did.
of marketing as a media relations specialist. So that saved me because it was media relations. So, but no, you're right. I think the transition from journalism to that marketing, PR, media relations side is much, much easier than going the other way. Yeah.
Kelly, what about corporate, where you're at? You kind of slid into this position too. You didn't really start out going this way.
I didn't. We actually, just to kind of agree with everybody just said, we actually have several former television reporters that work here. So
yeah.
So that absolutely does occur. And I actually came from the advertising agency side of things originally. So I was in a PR agency, true PR, for many years, but I'm much more of a generalist at this point. And then obviously working with the whole team of all the different specialists. So, I mean, I think you can come at my side of the business from very many different ways, whether it's journalism, which is going to give you strong writing skills and hopefully some interpersonal skills. Those are the two things that I can't teach per se. I can teach you all the details of the job, and help you grow. But if you have to come in with some good basic skills to help us mold you in that way. So, but
yeah, including grammar, punctuation, that's really important to everybody.
Yep.
One last question before we wrap up, we've only got a couple minutes, is do you recommend students seek out mentors who can help guide them, and how would they go about that in your field? I think we kind of answered that in a way. Shaun did, about look it up and see what you're doing, see who it is and what they're doing. But somebody want to talk more about that?
I know the NPPA, National Press Photographers Association, has a mentorship program. ONPA, the Ohio News Photographer Association, I'm going to start getting involved with the mentorship program. And then, yeah, I think it's fantastic to have mentors guiding us along the way, teaching right from wrong.
Yeah. Rhonda, I know you're big on mentorship.
Oh, for sure. But I like going about it through an organization first, because I think students need to be involved in student organizations that will lend itself to networking and finding mentors that on a first name basis, and that you can approach, and that they can guide you and assist you and help you land internships, help you land jobs, and things of that nature. So I would recommend finding those mentors through established associations and organizations that you dedicate yourself and your time to learn more just about the industry itself, but also to rub shoulders with people who have been in the business a very long time. There's other creative ways. I mean, pre-COVID, if someone was offering me tea with cream, I was a sucker for, going to Maddie and Bella's or wherever with a student to help them out. But time, more seasoned folks in the industry are busy. And so I think established mentorship programs, like Lori mentioned, through established organizations are probably the quickest way to find a really great mentor.
Or calling up an organization and ask to shadow. I have lots of shadows that go with me on assignments.
Exactly.
And they could see you work, and but with COVID, I just tell you, meet me there, where it used to be like they'd drive in the car with me. Yeah. Shaun, do you guys have shadow? Anybody shadow you guys?
No, we typically are not doing those these days.
These days, but you used to?
Yeah.
Okay.
We've had them in the past. Yeah, we used to. I used to be part of. There was a program at St. John's where they had a job shadow for the week years ago.
We
Used
still
to
do
do
that
stuff
with
with that, but yeah.
Mhm.
Do
Kelly,
they?
I know
Okay.
Medica has a lot of opportunities for interns and stuff as well too, don't they?
Yes.
And for finding mentors, what would you suggest of a mentor in your organization?
That's a really good, I would, very similar to what Shaun said, is take a look. I mean, LinkedIn is a great way to figure out who is who in our company and just reach out directly. We have internships. We do shadowing, not during COVID, obviously. And we are constantly bringing people in roles where they get to know people and then kind of build their career from there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I've also found like volunteering for a nonprofit, helping to take a picture or write a story or something. You will meet people in that organization and on the board who are also movers and shakers in the community. It's a great way to make connections and network a little bit.
Exactly. Kathy, I just wanted to add, virtual coffees are very popular.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah, they're very popular, but also, I love what Kelly said about reaching one-on-one and directly on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That is a great way, but also make sure that you state that you only need 20 to 30 minutes of their time. Again, time is a big factor.
Yeah.
Most of us who are more seasoned in the business didn't get here alone. We got here from mentors and people who guided us and helped us. So we are very willing to give back of our time, but time is precious. So if you say, take the lead and say, I would like to specifically talk about these three bullet points, and bring your favorite coffee, I'll bring mine, and just ask if that's you provide the link, you provide the Zoom link or whatever other virtual platform that you might use, or ask them what they would prefer. There may be somebody who likes GoToMeetings more than they like Zoom or whatever, and then you accommodate that mentor. I think that that's just another option as well while we're living in this virtual reality. And a couple of, I have 21-year-old daughters who are twins, and many of their friends and one of my twins, they have created virtual internships as well. One of them, she proposed it herself. They didn't have an internship, a paid internship position, but she saw that this organization didn't have a blog writer on their website, and she proposed just $30 a pop, $30 an article. And she's making all kind of money right now. They love her blogs. And, so she created that opportunity herself. And she's not in this particular profession that we're talking about. She's a nutrition major. But just think what that lends itself to, when she goes out and starts to look for jobs and opportunities, to see that she had that initiative to write about her particular major for an organization. So there are opportunities. There was even a young lady on a neighbor who created an opportunity and had a virtual internship with a Washington, DC, huge organization. She did essays and papers and things of that sort virtually and got paid. That was a paid internship. It was actually for the NAACP. And so it's just, it's out there. You just have to really look for it. But again, don't rule out the virtual coffees.
Thanks, Rhonda. Well, we really have kind of run out of time. I want to thank everybody for coming and thank our sponsors again. Hang on for the next session. It'll be starting soon. Bye.
Bye, everybody.